Hello and welcome to Health Matters on Channels Television. We're so glad you are joining us today. I am Mary Alale Yusuf. Now, diabetes is a chronic disease characterized by a flaw in production of insulin, which is inherited or acquired. It could also be the ineffectiveness of the insulin produced. The deficiency results in increased concentrations of sugar in the blood. Now, data from the World Health Organization show that 422 million people are living with diabetes, and that's up from 108 million people in 1980. Diabetes can be treated and its consequences avoided or delayed with diet and other methods. My guest on the show is a consultant endocrinologist and senior lecturer at the College of Medicine, University of Lagos. He is also an honorary consultant endocrinologist to the Lagos University Teaching Hospital. I have with me Dr. Ifedayo Odeniyi. You're welcome to the show, sir.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Okay, too much sugar in the blood. Are there symptoms for this anomaly?
Yes. Sometimes there may be symptoms. There may not be any symptom.
You mean someone will be carrying all that sugar in the blood and he wouldn't even know?
Exactly. So some people are out there, they don't have symptoms. For those who have symptoms, they go to toilet to pass urine too much. They eat too much, but they are losing weight. And sometimes they may present with complications when some organs in the body have been damaged.
Okay, so some people do not know up to the point that complications begin to arise.
Yes.
We'll talk about the complications later, but what would be the cause that somebody's body is not responding to the insulin that is being properly secreted by the pancreas? Why wouldn't they respond?
Okay, now, in diabetes, the common one we see really is the type 2.
Okay.
And that's where we have insulin being produced, not in the quantity that is enough. Now, that small quantity is also not working well. And that is what we call insulin resistance. The body does not recognize this insulin. Now, the insulin is what helps the body to make use of the glucose that comes from the food that we eat.
Okay.
Whether we consume carbohydrates, protein, or fat.
Does glucose come from all those?
The only thing the body recognizes is glucose.
Okay.
It cannot make use of those food in those raw form. Okay, so now for that glucose from the food to get into the body tissue for it to work, we need insulin. And so when insulin is not there or is not working well, then the glucose in the blood gets very high.
If I'm hearing you correctly, we used to believe that what turns into glucose at the end is just carbohydrates. But what you're saying is that end point of everything, protein, carbohydrates, is glucose.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, the body isn't being nourished very well then.
Exactly. Because what happens is most people have this erroneous belief that if you have diabetes, you should quit eating carbohydrates and stay on protein and maybe less fat.
Okay.
Now, what happens is the body only derives energy by breaking down glucose. So that protein is still converted into glucose. Now, at a very high expense for the body.
That's right.
It costs the body more to produce glucose from the protein.
Than from carbohydrates. Okay, so insulin is very important here.
Very, very.
Can you, by treatment or something, make the body begin to respond to this insulin?
Oh, yes. What we tend to do in terms of treating people with diabetes is to try and see if we can get the pancreas to produce more insulin.
Okay.
Now, 2, don't forget that the body is not responding to it.
That's right. So even if you produce more, of what use is it?
So we give other drugs that makes the body to recognize insulin. So that's why most times you see us prescribing 2 drugs, addressing 2 processes that are wrong in the body. One to stimulate insulin production, the other one to make the body to recognize this insulin. And on the long run, the glucose can go into the tissue and the glucose is broken down into energy.
Okay. Okay. Now, what are the risk factors, first of all, for developing
Type 2.
type 2 diabetes? That's the diabetes that does not respond to insulin, even though it's there.
Yeah. Now, there are so many of them. First, if it runs in a family, there is a tendency for those from that lineage to have diabetes.
Okay, that can be helped.
You cannot change your
Inheritance.
family. Inheritance. Okay. Now, our lifestyle. Okay, and when I talk about lifestyle, we're talking about urbanization. Urbanization is making us lazy.
Urbanization is supposed to be good.
It's meant to be good, but there is nothing that does not have the bad side. Okay, and so if we go out there, how many of us do really exercise? Okay, technology also makes us very lazy. Everything is virtually remote controlled. So we are not doing much. So we take calorie, we get fat, insulin does not work well. There are some other drugs that can predispose to development of diabetes. If a woman has been pregnant and in that pregnancy she was found to have diabetes, which we call gestational diabetes mellitus, even though after delivery that diabetes disappears, but she has a risk later in life to develop diabetes.
Okay.
Okay. So lack of exercise, sedentary lifestyle, family history, for those who have had hypertension for some years may come and develop diabetes later in years. And we must also add that as we grow old, there is the tendency to develop diabetes.
Okay, let me